Hello, and welcome to First Geek 411's Book Club. Tonight we will be discussing Daredevil Born Again by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. I read it on the app. Before we get into that, remember you can find us at all the social medias. I think still, right?
We are not
Yes.
on Twitter, but the other
Okay.
ones, yes.
Facebook and Instagram as One Geek 411. Come join our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Watch live on Twitch every Monday night at 6:45 Mountain Time and find all our videos over on YouTube. And you can also check out some sweet, sweet merch at our Redbubble store. I'm Shanine, and with me I have Emma.
Hi.
And Cameron.
Hello, hello.
All right. I'm excited. Let's get into it. Briefly, the plot of Daredevil Born Again, we have Karen Page struggling in life, and she sells Daredevil's true identity for some drugs. The information obviously gets back to Kingpin, and Kingpin aims to destroy Matt Murdock entirely, taking his job and his reputation and his home. Also attempting to take his sanity, which is successful for quite a while,
Yep.
and his life, which is not as successful. Kingpin's obsessive vendetta does ultimately end up being fruitless as Matt steps back into the Daredevil costume and thwarts Kingpin's plans. All right. I guess I will also mention that Daredevil Born Again collects Daredevil 219 and 226 to 233, all from 1986. So older comics, but I think not the oldest that we have read for book club. So
let me check. I think Shang-Chi was older.
I think so. I feel like that one was 60s.
Yeah,
I might be making that up, but
makes sense. I think at least two of us did not finish that one.
That one was dated in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That was early 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, so 1970, 1971, and then 74.
Okay. So. All right. But what is everybody's 3-word review?
It was decent.
All right.
It is Daredevil.
I should have thought of this beforehand. Matt is redhead?
Yeah.
Question mark?
Blonde? Redhead? Blonde? Something like that?
Yeah.
Captain America? Involved?
Spoiler
we'll talk
alert.
about Captain America.
Yes, my familiarity with the Daredevil character comes like entirely from the formerly Netflix and now Disney and Disney Plus shows. And I'm very used to him being played by Charlie Cox. And seeing him in this comic as a redhead the whole time, I was shocked every single time he was in a panel. And I was like, who is that? Oh, right. The main character.
Oh, yeah.
The man himself.
I know this one. So yeah, that was surprising for me.
I have some thoughts that I'll save for a future question when it comes to this.
But what is everybody else's familiarity with the Daredevil character and lore?
Netflix and Disney.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's it.
Yeah, I have unfortunately watched the Elektra movie as well as the OG Daredevil movie.
Oh yes, I
Um,
watched that one as well.
and
I
so,
forgot
but yeah,
about
other
that.
than that, yeah, like I don't really have any other familiarity with the comics. Um, Emma and I discussed this on our Daredevil Board Against Spoiler Cast. Not going
Yeah.
to be the first time you're going to hear us shout that out throughout this as we talk through this.
No.
But link in the description. We'll do hand wavy things here and just go ahead and get it, go ahead and get it tagged. Um, but talking about it there, like seeing Charlie Cox's performance has made me really want to read more Daredevil. And so I do have some of the newer Daredevil comics on my TBR. But other than that, I don't have a lot of familiarity with him other than when he shows up in other comics.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if he interacts with Spider-Man or whatever. Like I've read some Jessica Jones, but like I haven't read like Defenders or anything. So like I haven't really seen him from that side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have also been wanting to read more Daredevil comics because of Charlie Cox. So I'm very excited that we're doing this. Um, so what is everyone's thoughts on the character of Matt Murdock and the journey that he takes throughout this story?
He needed to get his act together. Granted, he was in a position that was thrust upon him through no will of his own. And he did that. Took him a while, but he got there.
Yep.
Good job, Matt.
You did it. Something that I noticed about this is I feel like Matt doesn't talk to anyone for like the first like 6 issues or 5 issues of this run, which is only like 6 issues long. Like he talks to the phone, but we then find out it's not Foggy. But like,
yeah,
I think Matt does not have a face-to-face conversation with another human being for like a huge chunk of this. And so like it's definitely like a hard way of representing the character that like I feel like that translates much I guess he talks to the nun. Just kidding. So he does have that conversation.
Yeah.
But I feel like that would work a lot better in film where like you can show him like what he's struggling through, whereas I feel like that's a lot more difficult in this. And yeah, I mean, it's good to see him go through it. Like this is definitely something as someone who does not consume comics in issues as they come out. Like this, I feel would be really weird to read if like you're just like bopping around enjoying Daredevil and then like episode two, like or issue 219 happens like, oh, some new people, they're here for 1 issue and then like we're just like now back around and then suddenly just like Matt has lost everything and is kind of barely in his own comic. And so I think that would be super interesting to go through just to get like that take on his journey versus like speed running through it as like I read this all like yesterday and today.
Yeah.
And so, but
I also finished it today.
Yeah. For the things that like that Matt goes through, I think it's very interesting to just kind of see him like, I'll say like how fragile everything in Matt's life is. And I feel like that gets represented really well here. Like, I think that that's something that's like a very interesting part of his journey is it's like, and this is one of the reasons that like I'm growing to really like Daredevil, in that Daredevil has like a lot of the same concept that Spider-Man has, where like Daredevil's biggest problem is dealing with Matt Murdock problems, and Matt Murdock's biggest issue is dealing with Daredevil problems, and the same thing with Peter Parker. Like, and so I think that that's really interesting. Of like here, like Matt Murdock pays the consequences for Daredevil. And we see like how everything crumbles and then they both kind of have to be built back up. And I think that was a really interesting way of representing the character in an issue that like a lot of the action is not Daredevil based. And so, until like really the end of the book.
yeah, I think it's very interesting seeing a superhero portrayed in this way.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of just Matt as Matt,
Mm-hmm.
and um,
Feeling sorry
like
for himself and his own
Yeah.
thoughts.
I mean, yeah, I feel like you're allowed to feel a little sorry for yourself in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
um, but yeah, I like we've seen superheroes go through struggles in their lives before, but to be brought so low as Matt is in this story, um, like being homeless for a while and like not even being safe in his own mind, and yeah, it's a lot that he had to go through. um and I think, yeah, it makes that putting the costume back on moment like so
Mm-hmm.
victorious, like, ah, oh, he's back, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely feels earned. Like in like trying to keep things as spoiler free for the series as possible. But like I think that that's something that is very difficult to represent of like how do you stall out that decision so that it feels meaningful while keeping the interest of the audience that is here to see Daredevil suit up. And so um, yeah, it feels good to get him back.
Yeah. Right. And thoughts on Kingpin as the villain?
Kind of sits in his thoughts and stares out windows a lot. You know, like he's just like, yes, Matt Murdock. I'm gonna smoke a cigar and look out a window and tell people to do things for me, which isn't necessarily the worst thing. Or he's gonna go lift weights, lift, lift weights. There we go.
Yeah.
Because whatever. Um, but then again, that's like kind of his shtick as the kingpin.
Mm-hmm.
He's the top of the pyramid. He can do that,
Yeah.
so it kind of makes sense that he can sort of stand there and stare out windows and tell people to go do things. Um, so, it's like, well, I would like to see some action between the two of them, but at the same time, it's fun to see him send his goonies out towards for
Mm-hmm.
Daredevil to deal with.
Yeah. This Kingpin's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not to say that Vincent D'Onofrio's isn't, because it is. Like that take is terrifying as well. But like this Kingpin doesn't like blow up your car. He destroys the dealership. Like
Yep.
like we see him bring down like Matt's literal whole building. Like this is not just like, we set up a gas leak and blew up your apartment. Like he levels everything, like complete collateral damage with literally no consequence until the end of this. Like, and even then, we don't actually even know like what is successful. There's implications in the like outro that Kingpin gets off scot free from most of the issues, but like he like literally like levels a whole building just to get at Matt, and like that is just terrifying. Or even as we get into it with Nuke later on, like hires this like complete psycho character, knowing that like the government's not gonna stop him, and then like see like a general stand up to Captain America about it and like
Yeah.
review. It's just like he's right. Like man, that is horrifying to see this version of Kingpin as someone who's really only familiar with like the TV portrayals and movie portrayals. Like that is insane. And it's like such a good representation of like Kingpin's power and influence, that like he can like, because it's not just that he can like through crime get away with so much stuff. It's just like that pressure that he just has on everything, that like none of this is a problem for him. Like, oh, it's just crazy.
Yeah, no, his connections are wild. Like, yeah, being able to hire an assassin from the US military and like
Yeah.
either like they're on his payroll or he's blackmailing them or he's got them in his pocket somehow, but he's like his powers of manipulation are wild. And his ability to just get away with anything, like kill another mob boss in front of all of the mob bosses, and that's
Yeah.
just the way it is because he said something Kingpin didn't like.
Yep.
And
Yeah, also, call me crazy, maybe don't sit next to Kingpin ever.
Yeah,
like just as like a general rule, like
yeah.
Don't let him ever grab you, just as a life stance. Like,
yeah, sit at the other end of the table, just
right.
in general.
There's the I forget who it's specifically talking about, but there's someone that's like in Kingpin's employ, and he like lets him off with like a warning. Then he's like, he's going skiing next week, right? And it was, yes, double fractures, both legs. Yeah, it's just, or compound fractures. It's just like, man, no chill.
Oh, you
like,
you thought you were getting off scot-free.
Oh man.
Guess what?
Yeah,
seriously
absolutely
brutal.
Horrifying.
The resources that man has.
Yeah. And also that like us beating Kingpin doesn't have like actually a whole lot of consequences for him. Like we won, he didn't get to kill Daredevil, but Kingpin is still alive. He is not in jail. All he has to do is like go to court a couple times probably and be like, what are you gonna do to me, guys?
Yeah, slap me on the wrist and
yeah.
let me walk free for ruining a man's entire life.
For destroying an entire New York City block.
Right.
Several, actually.
Yeah. No, he's scary. He's a really good villain.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and we have several recurring side characters throughout the series. Of course, Foggy Nelson, Glory, Matt's former girlfriend and Foggy's current girlfriend
/ fiance, I think.
Thoughts on
by
that?
By the end?
Karen Page and Ben Urich. So what are our thoughts on characters? Any favorites? Any standout moments with them?
This is more of a change to the show in general / screen. Is that I like that they made Karen Page a lawyer in the show. That's cool. I like that. But it also makes sense for the era that this came out in, that she would have been an actress type who then falls from grace, so to speak. I would have loved more direct interactions between Foggy and Matt, because they are besties and truly iconic. But I thought they were fun. The random lady who's like a nurse in one scenario and then like a cleaner in another, who's like a Kingpin lackey. She
Lois.
looks absolutely hilarious. Yeah. She, I don't know why, but she feels like the most iconic lackey of his to me.
Yeah.
Like, she's just, no one expects the cleaning lady. No one expects the nurse. No one expects this random woman on the sidewalk. And yet
It's like, oh,
she's
you're gonna
here.
send me to Arizona? I'll send Ben to Arizona dead. Like,
Yep. And she was great. Yeah. And then there's just the reporter who introduces himself every single time he's on a panel.
yeah.
It's like, yes, we know who you are. You've made your point.
Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Like, some of these side characters are a lot of fun.
The thing with Ben, that always makes me wonder, again, as someone who doesn't read issues as they come out, but like, I feel like, no, dude, we got it. Even if I'm reading this like once a month, like, you can tell me your name. There's not a ton of characters in this.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm confused at who you are, I have the previous issue. I don't need you to like tell me every issue who you are and what you do. But Ben grew on me. I did not like him in the first couple issues. He definitely grew on me as this went. And then, especially once he gets to the point where he's like in open defiance of Kingpin. Like, he has that like moment of fear of like, hey, your cast was supposed to come off the other day. And then he reveals that like the cast has already been removed, which he's just keeping it there for looks. And he's like, Matt Murdock. Like, that was super cool. I liked that a lot. Kind of to what Emma said, this version of Karen just makes me super sad. Like, I know that like season 3 of the Daredevil Netflix show kind of gets in a little closer, because that's also based on Born Again. And so that kind of gets a little bit into like Karen's past and getting into some of this stuff. I am very glad that they have not done this storyline from the Karen side, where like she sells Matt's identity to get high. Like, very happy that that is not what has happened. Especially for the MCU version. But I like once her and Matt finally meet back up. Like, but like, my heart hurts for Karen for like the rest of the book, and like the things that she has clearly been through and is going through. And so, but I really wish that she was not just so clearly like damsel in distress. Like, give her some more strength, even though she is like going through a lot. Not belittling that for when people go through that, but like, it just feels like Deborah Ann Wall does a great job representing like Karen Page's strengths. And it's not that she's strong or super charismatic or super powerful. It's like, but she has this like steadfastness. And this version of Karen does not have that, and it made me sad.
I think I was kind of reading it in a different way. There are some character differences between like the comics and the show that I did not appreciate at all. But with Karen, I think it was interesting because like in the show, I love Karen so much. I love how Deborah Ann Wald portrays her. And yeah, to see this storyline played by her would be probably the most tragic thing ever, and I would not recover.
Yeah. It would definitely break me emotionally.
Yeah. But I did really enjoy it in the comic. I think, I don't know, it's very like gritty and hard. But I think that Karen Page's character did still have like a strength to her, and a steadfastness. Like, she has a moment of weakness, obviously, like, going through all of that and, like, the emotional and mental and physical struggles that come with having an addiction like that. Um, but the whole time after that, like, she regrets it and she's just trying to get back to Matt. And I don't know, I think in the end they end up saving each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I really liked that. Like, once they finally, like, came back together, like, Karen was saved, but Matt also was, like, brought back to himself in that moment as well. So I like that.
I will say that's also something I'm curious to, like, if having known where their relationship was at this point in the comics prior to, like, the start of this, I'm curious, like, if that would have changed how I felt with that, of, like, not knowing that they were previously together and are, like, together in this. Like, I definitely think that that's something that would have, like, I would be interested if I had known that context ahead of time, of, like, that's also part of, like, it's not just like she loves Matt for friendship. It's like they are actually, like, romantic partners in this too.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if, like, knowing that ahead of time would have made the betrayal sting even more. But then would have, like, recontextualized why she's so bent on getting Matt back to Matt, where, like, because I didn't know that at the time, I read a lot of it as, like, damsel in distress and I need Matt to rescue me.
Yep.
And I definitely, like, understand what you're saying, Shanine, and I can definitely see that, like, now looking back through it. But, like, as I was going through it, that was just not how it got me.
That's fair. Yes. Character changes that I did not appreciate, largely surround Foggy.
Just broadly at Foggy. Like,
Foggy's character in the comics, wildly different from what I have experienced Foggy Nelson to be in the show. And I did not like it.
No.
Not one bit.
To the point that I would say Foggy gets way too much page time in this.
Yeah.
Like, I could, like, and I will not say that about Foggy in the show, but, like, Foggy in this, like, I could have done with, like, a third of this with Foggy. Like, he's just boring. Like,
he's boring and wildly patronizing and very sexist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in the 219 or whatever the other, is it 219? That we get at, like, it's at the end of mine, like, end of the collection. They put that one in. And, like, in that, he's, like, so patronizing to Glory. Like it's bad throughout, but in that one especially, like, man.
Yeah.
Get it together, Foggy.
Yep. Glory, though, super cool character.
Yeah.
I like her. She is sassy and she is confident, and I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Did y'all think Glory was going to betray them? Or, like, betray, like, Foggy and Ben?
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
That was definitely my read, especially as, like, we get to, like, the prison scene. I was like, oh, she's 100% going to, like, throw Ben to the wolves here. And no, she didn't. Like, she's great. But like that was like she even like goes through of like I am injured, but this film needs to get to the newspaper to be printed.
Mm-hmm.
Like Glory's awesome.
Oh, I was not thinking that. If that had happened, that would have blindsided me.
I would still have liked to see her like actually do something with the footage, because it just kind of like ends. But
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Any standout moments that you appreciated?
In the way that everyone complains about insert thing is happening in New York, where are blank characters? I love that the Avengers show up in this.
yeah,
And they
they
don't even like say
do.
like they don't necessarily like save the day. And like they're there to help stop Nuke as like Emma's showing, but like the fight's mostly over by the time that they get there. And
They're the
I love that we get
crowd control, basically.
yeah, and I love that we get that. That we get specifically Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man show up. And I think that was really cool, and it's a good way of making the universe feel lived in a way that
Mm-hmm.
again a lot of times that we miss. Um, and and even there, the idea that like they are too late, like Nuke has already like killed a whole bunch of people, but like so like while they do get there, like they're still like that's why we need like the street level heroes like Daredevil is like they took the Avengers too long, and um so yeah, I really liked that moment, um and and kind of even I'll say even like the whole Nuke fight, like I liked that of like finally getting to see Daredevil like suited up. I'm a sucker for a good like
Suit up
plane of
moment.
action fight where like you have the character fighting, but then like in this case we have the helicopter that's also there. Of like I thought that was really neat. I like that idea of like trying to juggle both parts of this. So I liked that whole section.
I'm a big fan of the thing at the end where it's a semi reveal slash not a very important one, that the costuming guy who does all the costumes for the superheroes is also a superhero slash villain who just goes around stealing things from museums to save his wife. Um, if I am ever to understand that correctly. But he's just this random Coliseum guy whose name I'm forgetting. Um, I thought it was a fun last little issue thing to leave off with. But I'm
I did
also a big
not
fan
place
of
that was the same guy. I completely missed that.
That's yeah, because
Just
there's a whole fight in like that whole area, if I'm
mm-hmm.
understanding that correctly. Sash, yeah. But I also loved when the Avengers showed up because that was one of the exact comments that I had about the show. Is like it because it's technically MCU slash also not at the same time because of copyrights. Like I'm missing all of these big name Avengers and other people stepping in and like having some part to do with some of these things that drastically affect a lot of the city and not just Hell's Kitchen. Um, and we got that here, and it healed a small corner of my soul. So yeah,
Yeah.
And
I
yes, I
don't know.
believe it is the same person. You are correct, Emma. Just did a
great.
quick
Oh
Google.
man, I did not get that either.
It was a very like random throw in of just like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is the same guy, right? Right? Yes, this is the same guy.
Yeah. it was exciting to see the Avengers show up because the cover for that comic has Captain America on it, and I was like, "What? Captain America? That's weird." Okay, we'll
Mm-hmm.
see. And then I read it in the Marvel Unlimited app, and I just go panel by panel because the words are so small to read a whole page. So I'm like going through, and I'm like, "Oh, there is Captain America." Next panel, Thor. Next panel, and Iron Man. Like, this is wild. So that was fun. Um, yeah, very exciting and unexpected.
Especially because like covers are so rarely about what's actually happening. I feel like so like it's like, oh, Captain, like my thought was, oh, Captain America's on the cover, we're gonna just get a reference to Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or we're gonna see like a picture of him somewhere and he's only on the cover to sell issues. Nope, he's actually there and it's like a prevalent part of the story. So
Yeah.
And we love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think my other standout moments I have mentioned already is just like that moment when Matt puts on the Daredevil costume again. It's like, yes, so good. And the reunion between Matt and Karen. I just love them. All right. Are there any dislikes that you had?
Emma referenced this earlier. Holy monologue, Batman.
Yeah.
Like, there is so much, like, what feels like pages and pages of monologue or of like tell, don't show with characters of just like, here is a giant wall of text of like, and like it's especially prevalent for Kingpin, but like here's an example, let me get this in frame, of it's just like a whole page of inner monologue for Kingpin as he works out, like, and that's like, it feels like that's like almost all of Kingpin. Like if he's on screen or on page, he is monologuing, son. Like and it feels like there's just so much of that. And I do think that falls into a part of the times. Like I do feel like that was a bigger problem of like I've had even when I try to go back and read like OG X-Men stuff, like the Chris Claremont like voice. I just feels like, man, we got to narrate everything instead of showing things. But that was definitely my biggest complaint from like a comic structure standpoint. And like I wish we could have gotten more. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's much different to have like Kingpin monologue that or like say that to someone else. But like just the fact that he is only like it's all in his head for so much of it is just like, this feels just like a little tiresome.
Only ever that.
Yeah, exactly.
Only ever that with him. It was such a random moment. It's when he's like, he's being healed by the nuns, and there's the random reveal where he asks the one nun if she's his mom, and then it's just never mentioned again. And he's like, oh, I know she's lying. When she says no, and then he just moves on. And it's like, well, that seems like a pretty big deal. You're not going to touch on that anymore? Now I want to know. Like, please expand on that. You can't just drop it as a little piece of information and then move on with your life. Please tell me more about this. Your mother is a nun.
Yeah.
I want more
That's
of that.
That's another one where like the questions of like, was this a big reveal to people that were reading this? Like, has this nun have had a prevalent part of the story and like the reveal that she is Matt's mother? Versus in this, it just feels like he asked a random nun well, not random, but like he asks like a nun, "Are
A
you
nun
my
who's
mom?"
there.
And she's like, "Definitely not." Like,
And walks away, and he's like, no, you are.
yeah, like again, like is that a reveal? Like I don't know.
Yeah. So that's the point that I was just like, I just expand on it a little bit more in an issue, maybe. But that combined with the monologues was just like, you can't spare some monologue for discovering your mother.
Yeah. And then yeah, we have talked about my take on Karen Page, but like,
Yeah.
And our agreement on Foggy, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really have any other outstanding dislikes aside from Foggy. I could not get past that. Every time he opened his mouth. Stop.
Just stop.
Stop.
He's very punchable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I feel like in the past, with us reading older comics, the art has not necessarily stood out to me a whole lot, just with it being older comic style, and there isn't necessarily a bunch of like, I don't know, wild art things that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not reinventing the wheel by any means.
Yeah. But there were actually some art things that stood out to me from this one, which I think was exciting and a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. What are some for you? Do you remember? As you don't have the book.
Yeah, I have screenshots. It won't like probably work as well as showing the book, but
My favorite is the triangle.
Say if you the triangle's cool. If you have the page number or like issue number, I can try to find it.
But I do not have that anymore. Okay. But I liked.
Okay, well, that's on page 56 and 57. So
okay, yeah, that one.
Because that's what I had for mine.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Yep.
I liked that part a lot. Like it was a bit of a, I feel like a Batman moment where we're like, and here's the backstory, the origin of how we became a superhero. And not having read the comics, I don't know how many times they've gone over that.
Yeah.
But we then started to talk about that every issue, I think.
Yes.
After that
the isotopes.
And he was hit with the isotopes, the radioactive isotopes. And then
did we mention the radioactive material that got into my eyeballs?
But I really like
my other senses. They're really sharp, but I
they're
can't
really
tell
good.
anyone.
I really liked the art for that, though. Just with like it being black, all black, to show that he can't see, which I thought it was fun. Just a cool art choice.
And it's like
it's like 4 pages of it too.
Again. And they kind of do it again later on. But not.
But I like it's on the 3rd page where they do that. There's this break for the memory of who we find out is his mom later.
Yep.
And so I really like the idea that like in all of these black, the thing that he remembers is that moment, and then it goes back to being black again. Like I thought that was really well done. Like that was super cool for what is effectively a whole lot of black ink on a page. Like it was black ink on a page in a really cool way. So.
I think this was my favorite cover because it's a nice like whatever angle, fancy stuff.
The other one that really stood out to me, I think it's the last page of Saved.
Okay, I'm turning there.
I just had it up and then I closed my book.
This one with the.
No.
Okay.
Maybe it's not the last one of Saved, but it's. Focus.
The explosion.
You know that one.
It's the last page of the next issue.
Okay.
So it's like the teaser for Armageddon at the end of the issue before that. So
yeah, just like the costumes on, explosions in the background.
Yeah.
The big moment. I was like, is this cheesy? Yes. Do I love it? Yes.
Also, yes.
Also, yes. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I had anything else specific art wise. Again, I liked the helicopter fight. I'm a sucker for like how do you draw movement, and so like while there's nothing like crazy about how they represent it here, I do love the like representing Daredevil dodging bullets and getting out of the way of fire and stuff like that. I do think that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I don't think I have anything else too specific. Oh, this one of Captain America at the computer, I thought was really fun.
Yeah.
I definitely spent way too long looking at the screens trying to like decipher all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure most of this is like actually mumbo jumbo. Like, but I was like, okay, is it upside down? No. Is it backwards? No. Okay. Like maybe this just isn't anything, and I'm just like overthinking this.
Code.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've touched a little bit on this, that it's not necessarily your typical superhero comic. We don't get a lot of superheroing up until the end. What are your thoughts on this type of story in a superhero comic medium?
I think it's a nice break from the usual superhero esque storyline of like every comic is we're gonna go out and fight some people who are doing bad things. It's, you know, this change and shift to like a larger story of someone struggling because the bad guy has targeted them and been very successful at it. But we still get some fighting and good superhero stuff. Had I not known it was Daredevil stuff going in, I would have like thought it was much more graphic novel type scenario. But it's still like it works for who like Matt and Matt Murdock and sort of Daredevil is as a character, getting much more into the nitty gritty of that character rather than just, hey, I'm Captain America, I'm going to go throw my shield at people and like fight the good fight. Yay!
Huzzah!
So I liked it.
My issues with this are mostly just for like the roughly 30-page problem of like, I feel like the pacing is always wonky, and it's just like, because you have to tell like an arc in the three, or like in those 30 pages, and I feel like a lot of times the stories struggle to represent that well when they're trying to do something that kind of like this one that are a lot more serious, where like I definitely think that they would have made, like, if you would have given them like roughly 200 pages to tell this story instead of giving them 30 pages 7 times to tell this story, like, I think the story would have been much more interesting. Now,
Trimmed down.
that being said, I do like this idea, and I really like that this isn't like a beach episode, but like it is an episode, or it is like a collection where we get Daredevil having to not be Daredevil and dealing with dealing with the consequences of his actions. I think that that's really interesting and is a great representation of what happens when a superhero's identity like becomes public. And so I think that is super cool. And it was very interesting to see that represented in a way that like isn't Matt Murdock can go punch his way out of this problem. And in fact, when he goes and tries to do that, it goes very poorly. And so I did like that a lot.
Yeah. I like it. I think getting to see them more as a character I enjoy very much. And yeah, as long as we're getting a good story with interesting characters, I don't even miss the superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Daredevil, the man without fear. How
she did it. She said the thing.
She did the thing. They said the title of the movie.
How did you all see fear playing a part throughout the story?
I think a lot in Paige getting back to Matt, even though it is very damsel in distressy, like her like realizing what she's done and is like, oh, I should probably get back to him. There's a lot of that in there. One of my favorite sequences is this whole scenario with Ben, where each panel he shows up, it gets closer to his face, and his face gets redder because he realizes that he's essentially sentenced someone to death, which is terrible. But it was a really cool. That's much more of a visual in terms of like fear. But I thought it was really, really cool of him like realizing the consequences of his own actions, and it terrifies him. Yeah, I didn't see a lot of fear with Matt. It's just him more so like struggling with the fact that he's been very specifically targeted and is struggling to stay alive. So, yeah.
One of the things that stood out to me is the idea of like that Daredevil and by extension now Matt Murdock live rent free in Kingpin's head.
Yep.
Of like, wow, like Kingpin definitely has the like, I did this, I almost tore his whole life down. It's like, but you didn't. Like, and this idea that like Kingpin is afraid of Matt Murdock, like not necessarily in the like he's gonna come fight me sense, but in the like what does Matt know? Matt is someone that would do something to stop me, since, and I really like that. That is, again, that it's not just like it's not a physical fear, it's that emotional fear, and I think that that's really cool to see represented on that side, in a way that, like, I feel like we a lot of times don't see Kingpin represented as afraid of the heroes.
Yeah. I think every character struggles with some form of fear at some point in this story. I think Foggy and Glory, we see them being really afraid for Matt. Karen is like afraid of what she's done and who she's become. I think Matt does struggle with fear at some point. I think there's that sequence where he's in like a hotel room and like keeps thinking that he's like answered the door or is leaving or something, and then but he hasn't. He's like still there and just, I don't know, being afraid of being stuck in what his life has become. I really like Ben's journey with fear. Just being like terrified into silence, like rightfully so, having all that happen in front of your eyes. It'd be like, okay, if you're not gonna kill me, then I'll just like not say anything. But his journey to overcoming fear is like so satisfying. And seeing him be able to stand up for what he believes is right. But yes, I think Kingpin especially, like it even specifically says in one of the panels, like the man that he is learning to fear. And it's like, yeah, take that, Kingpin. It's not this like mob boss like taking care of the little like ants and stuff that are irritating him. Like Matt has become a threat and more than just an annoyance. That is satisfying as well. But yeah, it's interesting watching all of like our heroes and side characters like journey through fear, while at the same time Kingpin is descending into it.
I agree.
Were there any other themes that stood out to you?
This kind of goes hand in hand with what you were just saying, and I was saving it for this question. I think another part of like what we see there of like Matt and crew moving out of fear, Kingpin moving in, is also the theme of control. And so the idea that like Kingpin starts this series in complete control. He's the one that knows Matt's secret identity. He's the one that's tearing everything down. Like Matt has no control. Like Foggy has some control over his life. Karen has like basically no control over her life. And like all of the heroes have no control while Kingpin has all of it. And then as we go, especially once we get to like when Karen gets back to Matt, we finally get the moment where like that scale begins to tip, and then like the heroes start to regain control. And until we get to the point where we get to the end, where again it's like Kingpin didn't lose in the sense of he's not like in jail, but like he has lost control of Hell's Kitchen again. And I think that that's really cool and is a great way of like representing that arc that goes on for those characters throughout this story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think redemption slash pulling oneself out of a pit, so to speak, sort of to tack onto that is another big one with us, because we see that with both Karen and Matt. Because it's not just that reverse trajectory of Kingpin, but like we've got Captain America and whoever else showing up on occasion that helps Matt really pull himself out of a hole, because of his fight with the other super soldier. Words are hard today. It's been a long day. But I think that's a big one, is just like seeing them redeem themselves in a way, and like supporting each other in that process is a big one. Because we also see it at the end with this other random guy the costume guy, who kind of redeems himself a bit. So, yeah.
Anything else that stood out to you?
This is not like a textual thing or like a content thing, but I want to shout out because I have ragged on it with some of the other comics that we've read. Like, this is a really good collection. Like, if you want to go and buy like the actual like physical book for this, like this does some really cool stuff. So like even here where like we have one episode that's different. Am I frozen? Is everyone frozen? People are very still. Okay.
Frozen for a little bit.
I think we're back. Okay. So Janine had like the look in her eye, and I didn't know if I was being judged or if Janine froze. And so I was like, but yeah. So I think this is like a really good collection. It actually like provides context for why like issue 219 is here outside of like, hey, we put this issue in it. Like there's an actual like in the book explanation. And then something that they do as well is they actually include the sketches for some of the art.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also include let me flip to it. They also include like the scripts that they wrote out where they're like describing what the scenes are supposed to look like on the page. And I think that is super cool. That's something that I wish more of these did. And then like one of the things that I love about these collections is that a lot of times they do show the like alternate covers, and like this one does that as well. But then this also includes like this is one of the scene where Matt and Karen get reunited. Reunited. I was saying reignited, and I'm like, that's not the word I'm thinking of. And like they talk about like, hey, like this was the original one, but like it got changed for the printing to be color corrected so that it would look differently. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to include the original one for the sake of like providing what was like the initial art for this panel. I'm like, mm-hmm. Oh, that's super cool. Like that's a fun thing to bring in. Like I said, that I wish more of these types of collections would do.
Yeah, I had fun looking at those at the end. I think my copy of whatever the last comic book collection we did something similar. Um, and it's just super cool and fun. I also just have, granted, for as long as I can remember, loved behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
type things. So like when DVDs had like BTS clips, this feels very similar. um, so yeah.
Um, all right. Shout out to y'all's spoiler cast from the
Yeah.
Disney Plus Born Again show. Um, yes, we'll try to keep this conversation non spoilery for the TV show. Um, but what are your thoughts on that as an adaptation of this comic?
I mean, there's going to be a lot of changes in general from comic books to TVs/movies. That's been a thing, I think, since forever. I kind of expect it for it to be matched considerably less than with other media adaptations. Um, but the thing I do like about the show is that it does keep a lot of the same central themes and points of the comic version, just in the sense of like Kingpin is out to get
Mm-hmm.
Daredevil and ruin his life, and like in many ways succeeds, and it does ruin Matt's life, and then he has to then fight back. It just looks very different on the screen. But I think a lot of the central themes stick around, um, which is if you're gonna make it look different or just like do a different story plot, um, but you end up keeping the central themes, that's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So
Um, reading through this made me very interested to read the Mayor Fisk run. I was like Googling to try to figure out what the other like run is, because that was the other like major like inspiration for that season. And so I'm like really interested to see how they mashed these up, especially when um like a lot of the or there are parts of this one that are part of the Netflix season 3 that then are not part of Disney Plus Daredevil because they didn't want to rehash the same things. And
mm-hmm.
so I'm definitely interested to now like go in and read that other part just again get the other side of those inspirations. Um, and then I agree with Emma of like it feels like tonally there's a lot of similar themes, but then a lot of the very like the specific things in this are pretty different. There's not a lot of direct carryover between what's happening on the panel here and what is happening um, in the show.
Agreed. Plot wise, it is totally a different story. Um, but overarchingly, Matt Murdock finding his way back to being Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also interesting that, like, I feel one of the big complaints that people were having was like, not enough Daredevil. And it's like, well, that is how the comic goes. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 and to be clear, that was not one of my complaints about the show. I loved it.
Me too.
Yeah, I feel like my take was more of like the surprise of like, wow, still no Daredevil. Like, uh, just like I'm surprised that y'all did it. Like, I'm surprised that this was something that like mattered. Again, in kind of like a similar way to this comic, it's like, oh yeah, like let's make this an interesting thing. Um,
Can't mean we
that
still
like,
just have plain Jane Matt Murdock?
yeah, like,
Still?
um, um, We have Mia in the YouTube chat and says, "Yeah, but that bathroom scenes," and I think that's what I think is very cool about the Netflix series is like they do kind of tease out a lot more of it, and it becomes a lot more of not the Netflix, the Disney Plus series. They tease out a lot more of like, oh, he's already cracking, and so we get that build up. Whereas in this, we kind of get it all at once that he is back as Daredevil. And so I think that's interesting, like different ways of representing that change of him suiting back up, which aligns with the different reasons between this collection and that show for why he stops being Daredevil. But I do think that it's a very cool to see that represented in different ways.
All right. This next segment is a bit more of a show and tell for me. I went to a local fan expo a couple weekends ago, and the writer Frank Miller was there doing a panel on Daredevil Born Again.
That's awesome. I don't
love
think
that.
I knew that you had done that. That's awesome.
It was very cool. So I will just share some things with you that he shared with us. He was very excited to be doing a story about Matt and not necessarily Daredevil. He said that character needed to be redefined, and he wanted to strip his essence and take away everything in order to define the character as who he was. He wrote not a superhero comic, but a crime comic with a superhero in it. He said, for years and years, it's more or less been our heroes having the same adventures. So he really wanted to mix it up and tell something different. About Matt Murdock, he said that Matt Murdock is a very emotional, romantic hero given to volcanic fits of rage and other emotions. He doesn't do anything small, and he is a very combustible character. One of the earliest notes he had to make about Matt was that he was a hypocrite. And there's lots of like duality in his character. So he is a lawyer, but he's also a vigilante. Just a lot of like bending the rules and like this split in his character. Something that made Fisk, I guess, more threatening to Matt Murdock was not only learning his true identity, but also knowing that there was something wrong with him and being able to manipulate and exploit that to really destroy him. But then Matt was born again as a truer hero and a more powerful one.
That's super cool. Like,
yeah.
Talk about like perfect timing. Like getting to go to a Frank Miller panel right before or like during the show. It's almost like we picked reading this for a reason. But like
it made up for Charlie Cox canceling for the third year in a row.
Classic Charlie Cox.
I'm not heartbroken. It's
everything's fine.
But no, it was so cool getting to see Frank Miller talk about that and like comics in general and yeah.
That's super cool.
So cool.
All right. Are there any final thoughts on Daredevil Born Again?
Considerably better than Shang-Chi.
Yes.
Considerably so.
Yeah. Probably my favorite of the comics that we have read for this channel, at least in terms of like the non-graphic novel stuff. Obviously, like they called us enemy, like, is fantastic. And it's probably one of my favorite reads of all time when it comes to comics. But in terms of the ones that we've read, this is probably top, right above Black Panther. Yeah. I definitely recommend. I think this is a great read. It's something that, like, while it does have signs of the times, like, it doesn't feel as it had signs of the times as the other things that we have read.
Yep. Agreed. I think this is probably our least problematic older comic.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Definitely.
I did not want to rage give this one a 1 star when we finished it, like I have for the other ones. So
that's a win.
Yeah.
No, I think I definitely recommend it to fans of Daredevil. Yeah. It's a good exploration of Matt Murdock's character. You get some very scary Kingpin. What more could you want?
Mm-hmm. Don't mind us putting notes in the show notes of like people like stop to read the notes that are and so
or whisper.
We're passing notes in class over here.
Yeah.
So our next book club will be Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins.
Let's go.
Probably on May 26th.
Yes.
Stay tuned for if that has to change.
Yeah, that is Memorial Day here in the U.S. And so, but should be good for that. And so, I'm excited. Emma and I have talked about this in normal podcast, what we've been up to as we have both been reading through this. And then Janine was like, I have the book right now and I got to take it back to the library soon. And so I'm excited. I was like, honestly, pretty sad we were not going to do a book club on Sunrise on the Reaping.
I know.
Just with how things worked out timing wise. So I'm very excited that we're going to now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that will be fun. Yeah. So thank you for joining us for our Daredevil Born Again book club. You can find us as OneGeek411 on Facebook and Instagram. Join our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out our Redbubble store, watch live on Twitch, and find all our videos over on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram at Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES.
And you can find me at I Am Not Prepared with an I Am Not Prepared on basically all platforms.
You can find me as Humar Whittle around the internet, namely Blue Sky and Discord, though. Those are my two biggest ones.
Go read a book.
Good.
Stare out of the window.
Menacingly.
Menacingly.